What's going on, everyone? Matt Savoca here from AWESEMO.com, and we are back on the AWESEMO Fantasy Football channel talking about the AFC, doing a little GM talk with my buddy Nick Lepri. Follow him at Notorious Fantasy on Twitter, at Notorious FNTSY. I am at Draftaholic. We're covering the AFC. Yesterday, we did the NFC in about 40 minutes. We are going to do the exact same thing here. Nick, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I think we did a good job yesterday. I think if you didn't watch that video, watch all of this video first and then go head on over there. I think you will enjoy this video just like you will have enjoyed yesterday's video. So I'm very excited to talk about the AFC today.
Absolutely. And here's the goal of these videos. It's to get you caught up on the offseason, basically things that are important to know and to note about things that have happened since the last time we saw these teams. We talk a little bit about their early round draft capital, their wins and losses, their pluses and minuses, their strengths and weaknesses, and then we make some guesses about where they might go with that early round draft capital. We're going to start with the AFC East as we did yesterday, and I know you've got a favorite team in here. That is not the New York Jets. The New York Jets start with just 5.5 wins as an expected win total via points bet win totals today. Man, they don't look like a good team at the moment. I do like Robert Saleh. I think he's got a couple of things that he's got to work out, but the rankings and the ratings don't show any progress really compared to last year. 31st in overall defensive rating, 26th in offensive rating, 21st in pass block ranking, 30th in pass rush. There's really nothing that they do particularly well. At least they have 4 picks in the top 10, Nick. Do the Jets have any chance to make some noise in this pretty talented AFC East?
Yeah, I think they could potentially make some noise. I don't think they're going to win 8, 9 games, but I think they definitely could go over the 5.5 number. I think if Zach Wilson really does step up in his second year, he looked so much better at the end of the season compared to the beginning of the season, where it almost looked like he was just a disaster out there. And then they have Mike White play. But at the end of the season, we saw Zach Wilson and he did look pretty solid. I think they do have a pretty solid foundation. And if they are able to stay healthy, which just has not been a thing for the Jets as of recently, if they are able to stay healthy, I think they actually could put up a solid season again, not a playoff year, but definitely something they could keep building upon.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you right off the back here. But off the bat, excuse me. I mean, I just think that even if they hit on these first 2 picks here, the 4th pick, the 10th pick, they also have the 35th and 38th picks in this draft. There has to be so much that goes right. You've got a supercharged Miami team. You've got New England making the playoffs again. You've got Buffalo competing for the AFC crown every single year. I do not think the Jets make 5.5 wins this year. A lot of things have to go right, in my opinion. Too many things. And when CJ Uzoma and the pleasant surprise that is Braxton Berrios are your big offseason signings, I'm sorry, you're not getting it done. You're not getting it done. Let's move on to maybe the most exciting team for you, my friend. Yeah. The Miami Dolphins completely transformed their offense with a trade for Tyreek Hill. They also have a new coach in Mike McDaniel. We've got people added from that San Francisco scheme. Raheem Mostert's there. Chase Edmonds from Arizona is there as well. They franchise tag Mike Gesicki. They have offensive line concerns, especially on the outside, and they weren't particularly good as an offense this year, but I think the ceiling is sky high, no, for this offense this year.
Yeah, I think without Brian Flores, that Tua is going to have a lot better of an opportunity to sling the ball at a higher rate, and I think that he will be kind of almost less handcuffed in this offense. I saw an interview yesterday of Tua talking about how he's excited about Mike McDaniel. They asked him a question about Brian Flores and kind of just, it was one of those where in kindergarten they tell you if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. And that was kind of what happened. You just didn't say anything. He just completely dismissed the question. I think that this is a Dolphins team that should go over 8.5 wins. I bet them at over 9 wins. So I'm very confident in them. Then again, I do bet them every single year since I turned 21 to make the playoffs, all that. But I do really believe that they're a much better team this season. And I think if Tua Tagovailoa is able to make that next step, it shouldn't even be that difficult with the offense they have now. As long as the offensive line does play better, they did bring in Armstead as well as Connor Williams. So I think the offensive line will definitely be better, though.
I hope so, man. This is the year for Tua, right? Because one of the stats I look for in a quarterback, can you turn a drive into a touchdown? Adjusted for sample size, because obviously the more you play, the more we know about this rate stat. Can you turn a drive into a touchdown? And right now, Tua Tagovailoa is about as good as Mitchell Trubisky at turning a drive into a touchdown. That's not going to cut it for this kind of offense. I hope that Mike McDaniel can get the most out of them. Certainly one of the most intriguing teams in the entire NFL heading into this season. The next team with 8.5 expected wins is the New England Patriots. I think they outperformed expectations in all categories last year. They spent a ton in free agency last offseason. Now they have 3 draft picks in the first 3 rounds as usual. The 21st pick is their first one. They were actually the second ranked offense in PFF grades last season. I wouldn't rank them as the top 2 offense in the NFL, but when you're talking about top 10 in pass block grade, top 8 in rush block grade, they do the ugly things well, and they're a top 8 defense as well. That's a playoff caliber roster. How do you feel about this team going into 2022?
I think a lot of this is going to hinge upon how well Mac Jones is able to play in his second year. I think now they're going to try to maybe unleash him a little bit more. It seems like last year the game plan for their offense was kind of just let Mac Jones do his thing, but as long as he doesn't mess up completely, like make a stupid play, then they're going to end up winning the game. And I think that maybe now they're going to put a little bit more trust into Mac Jones and let him do a little bit more. I am a little bit worried about their defense. Their cornerback crew is not as good as in the past, and their wide receiver core, despite spending all that money, pretty much sucks besides Devontae Parker. So I think this is a team that could get over 8.5 wins. It's hard to bet against Bill Belichick, so I won't. But this is definitely a very competitive division, and that could see the Patriots kind of fall off if they're not able to keep up.
I do think that there could be some very simple regression here. I wrote cornerback as their number 1 position of need. Sorry, guys, you drafted N'Keal Harry in the first round and you whiffed. That means you got to spend draft capital on wide receiver again. I know you have that tight end core now with Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Actually, Smith was kind of a disappointment this year. Henry was anything but. But I have some concerns about this team hitting their win total and making the playoffs as they did. Mac Jones needs to continue to step up, in my opinion, from an efficiency standpoint. He played well for a rookie, and the ceiling is still high, but the floor is also very low for me. Before we move on to the juggernaut of this division, give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, our DFS offers, our fantasy football offers, our best ball offers, our giveaways, and so much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you always know when we're going live. And while you're at it, hit the like bell. Follow us at Draftaholic for me, and my buddy Nick is at Notorious Fantasy. We move on to the Buffalo Bills, led by All-Pro Josh Allen. Allen had another fantastic year, really 2 straight fantastic years. And the way that he played in overtime against the Chiefs, it essentially changed the way that we think about overtime in the NFL. They changed the rules. That's the quality of this team right now. The number 9 ranked offense via PFF, one of the most explosive teams in the league. Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, and their defense, especially when fully healthy, one of the best units in the league. They lost Trey White for the year, still ended up 6th in coverage rating and 9th overall in defensive rating by PFF. Someone in the organization said they wouldn't mind taking a running back in the first round. I will be throwing myself off a bridge if that happens. This team can absolutely solidify an already elite defense with maybe a cornerback, outside linebacker pick. Maybe you get a wide receiver pick in there in the first 3 rounds. How are you feeling about the Buffalo Bills? It's really kind of Super Bowl or bust with this team, right?
Yeah, they're one of the teams that I would expect to make it very far in the playoffs, and it would be almost shocking if at this point they aren't knocking the door on into the Super Bowl, right? They have played so well over the last 2 years. Josh Allen has went from this guy with the huge arm that might be a little inaccurate to pinpoint accuracy, hitting guys deep down the field, huge arm. This is a very good team. Like you said, I would also be disappointed if they took a running back in the first round, but would it shock me? No, the Chiefs a couple of years ago took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round for some obscene reason. So you never know. They don't really have a good running back. They just have a bunch of names at the running back position. So if they did take a running back, hopefully they select the correct one. But I do agree. This is a really good team. And I do also agree on the fact that I think they need a corner. Their team weaknesses that I wrote are running backs and cornerbacks.
I'm fine with a day 2 running back, maybe late day 2, personally,
Yeah.
to compete with Zach Moss for playing time. I like that they started to lean on Devin Singletary. Okay, fine. You don't feel like you have a workhorse bell cow running back. You do not need that. Also, by the way, they signed Jamison Crowder, could be huge with the release of Cole Beasley. That literally could be a 1-for-1 replacement in best ball drafts, especially I'm drafting Jamison Crowder above ADP. Rapid fire here. I got Buffalo as the division winner. You anywhere else? You picking your Miami Dolphins? You going to do it?
No, I'm going with the Bills again. I just think the
come
Bills
on.
are going to stomp on the AFC East. The Dolphins, Tua can't beat the Bills. Unless, of course, Mike McDaniel turns this all around. All the other divisions I have much different compared to the usual who most people are going to pick. But here, I really think Buffalo just destroys the AFC East again.
They're the best team in the division, and you could make a strong argument the best team in the conference. Moving on here to the AFC South, and we've got two duds to start us off. The Houston Texans are 2 years away from competing. What else can you say? The expected wins right now at 4.5, 30th ranked offense, 30th ranked defense via PFF. They need help everywhere. Edge rushers, offensive line, defensive backs, quarterbacks, the most important position groups in all of football, all of those. At least they've got two first-round picks, the number 3 and 13 pick. They've also got the 37th and 68th pick here in the first 3 rounds. I think this is a year that Houston should look into trading down and trading out so that they get more first-round picks because they need all the draft capital and all the help that they can get. Any chance you see them hitting the over on this 5.0 or 4.5 line?
To be honest, probably not. Their team weaknesses, I put literally everything, basically everything. Their one strength I wrote was Brandon Cooks, and we all know
sir.
Brandon Cooks. I mean, he's a great player, does have some injury concerns, but besides that, he is really good. He is the only good player on this team. Davis Mills could genuinely be the franchise guy there in Houston. To you, maybe that sounds a little bit crazy, but based upon what I saw last year, I actually think he's a lot better than what people say of him. They make fun of him because he has a huge neck. Yes, that is true. He does have a big neck like Mike Glennon, but he is actually a lot better than people give him the credit for. And if you really think about it, if he was to have stayed in college one more year, maybe he would have been a first-round pick in 2022. So I like Davis Mills a lot, but even if Davis Mills becomes this next-level quarterback, they're probably not winning 4.5 games.
I hope you're right about Davis Mills. I don't know. Again, that stat, turning a drive into a touchdown, and then I do some fancy math stuff, some Bayesian optimization. Nobody cares. And Davis Mills looks like a below average at best quarterback to me. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong for Texans fans. I think you got to get as many first-round picks over the next 2 or 3 years so that you can compete in a couple. That's my opinion. We're moving on here to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have, once again, the number 1 overall pick. And interestingly, in a QB sort of weak class, QB-wise, they don't need a QB at the 101. 28th ranked offense, 28th ranked defense. They need help at DB. They need help at edge. They need help at wide receiver. They need help on the interior offensive line. This is another team. I feel like it's deja vu. It's another team that just needs so much help all over the place. Same question. Jacksonville, how are you feeling about this team? They got Travis Etienne coming back. Is that going to help them at all?
Maybe. I mean, they spend all this money in free agency, and they have nothing to show for it, right? Who's so excited about Christian Kirk that you're going to back up the Brinks truck, give him all that money? Evan Ingram. I mean, the offense is definitely better than last year. Anything is better than Urban Meyer. I genuinely believe I could have been the head coach of the team and they would have been better. You could probably had Tim Tebow be the head coach and it would have been a little bit more helpful than Urban Meyer. I mean, it was embarrassing how bad he was. I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to look better. He just did not look good at all last year. With all the praise this guy got that he's the best quarterback coming out of the NFL draft since Andrew Luck, he's this complete player. He didn't look like it last year to me, especially throughout the early parts of the season. I think Trevor Lawrence will be a little bit better this year. I don't think they hit over 6.5 wins, but I do think that they are going on the correct direction. And I think ETN will be a helpful player for him, but I still don't understand why they drafted him last year with how good James Robinson has been.
Yeah, I mean, Robinson obviously has that brutal Achilles injury at the end of the season. Yeah. So Etienne is going to get his run here. Trevor Lawrence barely threw 50 times in a game last year. And that's really what you need from your number 1 overall pick. They're going to make mistakes. Most quarterbacks are not Patrick Mahomes when they walk onto the field. They need some time to adjust. And so I would like to see the game plan, even if the Jaguars end up having a losing record. I'd like to see Trevor Lawrence get his time to throw and just work out what they have with that roster. They're certainly a year away, in my opinion. Now the teams that believe they are win now for sure in this division. We'll start with the Indianapolis Colts. Made a huge change this offseason. In my opinion, snowed the Washington Commanders, got way too much draft capital for Carson Wentz, and then ended up with Matt Ryan as a more than competent quarterback, in my opinion. I think the reports that he is washed are a little bit overstated here. Still, they were the 16th ranked offense last year, much better in the rushing department, 9th best in run blocking, the 7th best defense, and you can argue they got even better this year. I mean, the Colts are definitely a contender in a fairly easy division. No first round pick. Do you think that stops them from getting to that 9.5 win total?
No, I don't think the draft will heavily impact them. Like if they don't have first round pick, who really cares? In my opinion, I really think that Matt Ryan is leaps and bounds better than Carson Wentz. I have never been a Carson Wentz guy. A lot of people were trying to talk themselves into Carson Wentz last year. He's in Indianapolis. He's in this great situation. And maybe that's what I'm doing this year with Matt Ryan. But I really do think maybe Matt Ryan's not 2017 MVP choking the Super Bowl to the Patriots, Matt Ryan, but he's still pretty solid. And with the weapons they have there, I really think that Matt Ryan is going to be very successful as long as Jonathan Taylor is able to be still the key piece in this offense. They're able to run the thing with him. Then I really think over 9.5 wins might even be a little bit low. Wouldn't be surprised if they got to 12 wins this year.
Here's the thing I want to say about the Indianapolis Colts. They are very fragile as a team. Not that any team can withstand a quarterback injury, but if they lose Michael Pittman, if they lose Jonathan Taylor, this team does not have a lot of firepower behind them. No Marlon Mack anymore, Naheem Hines. I mean, they really would have a lot of trouble if Taylor were to go down. And by the way, the running back, the most injury-prone position on offense there. So, yeah, that's tough. This is the other problem for the other contender in this division as well, though. The Tennessee Titans had that exact problem last year. Derrick Henry losing much of his season to a foot injury. Now you trade for Robert Woods. That's basically replacing whatever was left of Julio Jones last year. A.J. Brown looking for a new contract. At this point, mid-April, I still believe that he'll be a Tennessee Titan next year. It's a team that was league average in offensive grade and 10th in defense. Ryan Tannehill took a step back in efficiency. And overall, they're just focused on, line picks, Harold Landry, Jeff Swaim as their big re-signings. Other than that, Robert Woods is the big addition. Tennessee, in my opinion, is the division winner. Am I crazy here? Are they too old?
My division winner is the Colts, but I wouldn't be surprised again if it was the Titans. The Titans are one of those teams that they don't interest me a whole bunch because I just don't love watching them. I think that if they were able to put the ball more in Ryan Tannehill's hands and give him more opportunity to throw the ball, that I think the offense would be even better. Again, that's not to say that Derrick Henry is bad or something. Derrick Henry is probably the best running back in the NFL. When he's healthy, this guy can rush for over 2,000 yards. Again, when he is healthy, same thing with Jonathan Taylor, like you brought up a little bit before. I think the Titans are a really good team on paper, and I think it's basically a coin flip between them and the Colts, and then the rest of the division just really stands no chance. So again, with the Titans, I think they are a solid team. I expect them to be one of the better teams in the AFC. I'm just not too sure if they will have more wins than the Colts.
This comes down to Ryan Tannehill for me. If he plays like he did in 2019, 20, and the early part of 21, they'll be great. If he plays like 2021 later, Ryan Tannehill, I don't have much hope for them. I think they're going to go interior offensive line. They've got some replacements they need to make there early on in the draft. But like we said a lot yesterday, don't be surprised if they go wide receiver in one of those first 2 picks in the first 3 rounds there. Okay, Colts are yours. Titans are mine. Now we're moving on to maybe the most exciting division in football. You could definitely argue that some new additions, some good buys there, especially on the Pittsburgh side that we got to get to. The AFC North has a ton of firepower. The rebuilding team is the Pittsburgh Steelers here. They signed Mitch Trubisky as a quote-unquote replacement for Ben Roethlisberger. This is the 29th ranked offense in the NFL. Basically, it was just a name at that point. This pass blocking grade was league average, run blocking well below average as it has been for a few years. And even the defense, which was elite 2 years ago, took a step back, 18th in overall defensive grade, 14th in pass rush, 25th in coverage grade. I wrote defensive back is a huge position of need, quarterback as well. Is there any way that the Steelers compete with these 3 other teams who are ready to win now for sure?
No, I don't think so. I think that they're still a team that if Mitchell Trubisky is potentially not terrible, could win over 7.5 games, but I don't expect that. I think that they're definitely the bottom feeder in this division, which is very weird to say for a Mike Tomlin-led team. That is the biggest concern with me with betting on the under on the Steelers is that Mike Tomlin just doesn't go under 500. even with Mitchell Trubisky, even with all the bad things that have happened to the Steelers, they always somehow make it over 500. So I would be that's why I'm kind of scared to bet the under. But at the end of the day, this is by far the worst team in the division. And don't be surprised if they draft a quarterback in the first round.
I think quarterback is a huge possibility. And this is a low probability outcome. I want to say it's a low probability outcome, but let's say you're trying to create some off the wall stacks in one of these underdog best ball tournaments, and you want to try to make a stack that has low ADP and you can easily get the quarterback later. What if this Chicago Bears regime completely whiffed on Mitchell Trubisky, and then he went to the Bills, and all the Bills did was rave about how hard this guy works, how he deserves another shot, how his ceiling is super high in the NFL? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm well under 25% chance that Mitchell Trubisky is an excellent quarterback. But there was a time we were talking about Mitchell Trubisky taking a team to the next level. If anyone could get that out of him, I think it's Mike Tomlin. I don't believe it's going to happen. Let's move on to some of these really, really exciting win now teams. Cleveland makes a huge move in the offseason, basically saying goodbye to Baker Mayfield by trading for Deshaun Watson, giving him a massive, massive contract. And we don't know at this point whether Deshaun Watson will be suspended for some or many games at this point in the 2022 season. So a lot of places their win total is off the board. I had seen it around 9 in a lot of places earlier this year. This is a team that was already the 4th-ranked defense in PFF's grades, especially great in coverage, number 1 in the NFL. This offense is elite. This is just an overall elite roster that is in desperate need of a number 2 wide receiver after trading for Amari Cooper. What other holes do they have?
Yeah, wide receiver is by far and away their biggest hole, and it is not even close in my book. I think that while it seemed like Jarvis Landry shut the door on the team, now it seemed like, oh, maybe they're going to get Jarvis Landry back. Maybe even Odell will come back. Will that happen? Probably not. But if he does, that just proves that there was nothing wrong with the Browns. It was all just that Odell hates Baker Mayfield. But at the end of the day, the Browns do definitely need wide receiver. I think defensively, they are very, very strong. Any team could use another corner, right? You talk about in a lot of these teams, oh, they need another corner. Basically, every team needs another corner. So that could also be somewhere that the Browns look. But overall, I think they're a very complete team. All that they need is Deshaun Watson to play half the games this year, and I think they could screech their way on into the playoffs. But going forward, if Deshaun Watson is not suspended 8 games, maybe he only gets 4 games, they should easily win this division in my book.
Easily win the division. Wow. With the reigning AFC champions, that is a bold call. Remember, they did get Amari Cooper in that trade with the Cleveland Browns. So as long as Cooper stays healthy, they do technically have a number 1. They franchise tag David Njoku. But I agree with you. Wide receiver, absolutely a position of need. Donovan Peoples-Jones is probably going to have a chance in this offense to step up. And if you're looking at this roster right now and you're trying to find a best ball sleeper from Deshaun Watson, that's the name to look at, DPJ. Speaking of which, I think now is as good a time as any to talk about today's video sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. We've been talking about them all throughout these 2 shows, yesterday and today. Our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, is known for NFL best ball. But they don't stop there, guys. Underdog has plenty of other contests for you to compete in, including live draft contests and pick'ems, which you can make up to 20x your entry fee. Use promo code AWESEMO when you sign up to get a first match deposit bonus up to $100. Okay, we move on to, in my opinion, 2 of the best rosters in the AFC. The Baltimore Ravens is where we'll begin. They were ranked 17th in PFF offensive grades, and that's really because Lamar Jackson missed a ton of time with an ankle injury. They have a league average or better ranking really everywhere else. Run blocking grade is quality. Pass blocking grade is actually even better than that. And their pass rush especially is elite. The coverage, I'm throwing this coverage grade of 28th overall in the NFL completely out the window. We know the injuries that fell upon this Baltimore secondary, just absolutely ridiculous. I don't even think defensive back is their biggest position of need, even though we see that ranking. They've got 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. If you're asking me what is one of the best bets you can make on a team right now, it's the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I love this roster. What say you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do like this roster as well. I know it may have sounded like I'm a crazy Browns fan or something, but I do also like the Ravens. The Ravens really got in front of themselves a lot last year. A lot of plays down the deep of the season, you remember, They're going for 2-point conversions, just choking these games away. I don't know what they were thinking, but then Lamar Jackson's hurt as well. So this is a team that dealt with a lot of injuries last year. If you remember as well, every single running back that graced the field for the Ravens somehow just got injured. I don't know if it's cursed in Baltimore or something like that, but everyone was getting hurt. They were so injured. And this year, if they're able to stay healthy, which is a huge ask for any team, people are going to get injured on every team. But the Ravens just got so unlucky that I feel like the pendulum, or whatever that word is, flips the opposite way, and they're a lot more healthy this year. I like the Ravens a ton. 9.5 wins. This is a strong AFC conference as a whole, but I think they could get over 9.5 wins.
Plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. I saw them up at plus 2,100 earlier in the offseason. I digress. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team where you could easily say, well, they went a little farther than anyone expected. I expect regression. Yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true because they were the 11th best offense. I didn't think they were elite until suddenly we see them playing in the AFC Championship game and then the Super Bowl. Same with their defense, really. 13th in defensive grade, 10th in coverage grade. They really improved from one year to the next in the secondary. That really, really helps things, especially when your quarterback stays healthy and improves from an efficiency standpoint, which is exactly what we saw from Joe Burrow. They have pick 31 in the draft. They've got pick 63, pick 95. I don't know how much of a contribution they're going to get from that point. It's the interior, defensively and offensively for this team. Unsexy picks. How do you feel about how do you feel about the Cincinnati Bengals heading into their 2022 season?
Yeah, I agree. I think center is probably their biggest need. Last year, the offensive line was a disaster. It was a turnstile. They couldn't stop anything. It was actually embarrassing watching the Super Bowl where I'm like, you know what? Maybe these guys, the adrenaline will be running. It's the Super Bowl. Maybe you'll get the best version of them. No, they let Joe Burrow almost die out there. I agree with you. I think regression is bound to happen. But will that regression be that they absolutely stink? Probably not. Joe Burrow is so good. They have, in my opinion, the best trio at the wide receiver position in the NFL: Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, as well as T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is severely underrated as well. I think in fantasy football, he could easily outscore Jamar Chase, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. And he goes multiple rounds later on underdog. So he's a guy that I've been targeting a lot on there. I think the Bengals are a great team. Will they make the Super Bowl? Probably not. But I don't think even any Bengals fan is expecting that in 2022. So 9.5 wins is a solid number for them. Again, this is really going to hinge on how healthy, or not how healthy, but how long is Deshaun Watson suspended?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest question mark in the division for sure. And health, that's always a question mark. The NFL season is a war of attrition to an extent. But this team, I believe Cincinnati fans believe that they are Super Bowl or bust level. I'm not actually so sure. I think they're going to find themselves in a dogfight in December and January for those last couple of playoff spots, probably with some teams from the next division. Before we go to the AFC West, one of the most exciting divisions in football, what's your division winner in the AFC North?
It's going to be the Ravens. Again, I think they're going to be able to stay healthy. I just don't see them going for a bunch of games in a row and throwing these games away, right? I really just don't see
They
that.
were right to go for two. Don't get me started here.
No,
That
maybe
whole
they were, okay?
that
But
whole season, that whole season feels differently if they hit on even some of those. I understand. I got some friends in Baltimore who are still furious about that. All right. We're gonna move on. The AFC West got beefed up with talent all over the place. They lost a little bit of talent in Tyreek Hill moving on, but the Raiders, who technically have the lowest win total in this division, are the first team we'll talk about. 8.5 wins is this team's win total right now. Obviously, the huge trade for Davante Adams, creating the college shower narrative, the synergy between the old Derek Carr, Davante Adams going to be back. And they already had Darren Waller. Hunter Renfrow surprised a ton of people last season, made a Pro Bowl. You could argue that this is the best receiving trio in the NFL with Davante Adams, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow. Not a crazy argument at all. Can Derek Carr, who just signed a huge contract, take this team deep into the playoffs? They've got no draft capital to speak of in the top 100, just one pick 96. What is your opinion on this new look Raiders team?
yeah, in yesterday's AFC video, I'm almost certain that I talked about how I thought Derek Carr is criminally underrated, just like Kirk Cousins. You remember a couple of years ago, prior to him getting hurt, he looked like the MVP of the league. He looks great, in my opinion. I think that a lot of people will nag on him because he hasn't really taken the Raiders far, right? He hasn't been, some people say he's undeserving of the money he got, but with Devontae Adams, with Darren Waller, with Hunter Renfrow, with Josh Jacobs, who may not be this elite fantasy asset because he doesn't catch passes, but as a pure running back, speaking for NFL terms, he's really good. They have a very good offense, a pretty solid defense as well. The biggest issue with the Raiders has recently been just their own players doing, I don't want to go super in depth with this, but doing the wrong things, right? Guys getting suspended, all types of stuff. But the Raiders are a very good team. And I think that 8.5 wins is fair. But would you be surprised at all if the Raiders won this division? To me, no. I think the Raiders are an excellent offense. And I think if Derek Carr is able to play at the same power he was at last year, then they could even actually just win this division, even if he doesn't improve.
I think the move that they made clearly indicate that they believe they have the roster to win the division. Here, let me give you a all-time quarterback comparison for Derek Carr. I believe the best comp for Derek Carr, Eli Manning. Eli Manning was an average to an above average quarterback who played to the level of the offensive talent around him. You have now surrounded Derek Carr with elite offensive talent. Now's the time, my friend. That's why they signed the contract. The new coach believes in him for sure. The defense is average. If they can get above average, that's a huge boost to this team. But they are going to have to compete every single divisional game because all three teams we're going to talk about next have the win totals at 10.5. The Denver Broncos, they trade a haul away for Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited himself. So you throw all those offensive grades out the window when you got Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock starting for you. I know Wilson did struggle after that hand injury. When he came back, he didn't seem like himself. I don't think he was close to 100%. Denver's defense has more talent than their PFF grades indicate, but they were 26th in defensive grade. Their first pick now is pick 64 in this draft. So really, we know what this team is heading into this season. Denver's got a ton of competition in the AFC West, as we've been talking about, but isn't the sky the limit for Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy? Aren't these elite fantasy options now in season-long and best ball drafts?
Yeah, I believe so. I think a lot of people are getting a little too high on them, ranking them a little, like some people I've seen rank Jerry Jeudy in the top 12. I think that's a little crazy. I actually think the best receiver on this team will be Cortland Sutton in fantasy. Maybe that's a hot take to many people because they think Jerry Jeudy is so good, but Cortland Sutton is a solid wide receiver. Albert O, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It looks like his parents smashed the keyboard when they put his birth certificate in. It's just a crazy ass last name. Again, nothing wrong with him. I like him a lot. That's why I brought him up because I think he could also be a top 10 tight end in fantasy. The only argument against that is that Russell Wilson doesn't really throw to the tight end. So technically, maybe you can just throw out everything that I just said. But in my opinion, I think he could be. And then the running back core there is amazing as well. Will they get rid of Melvin Gordon? Who knows? For fantasy, you want that to happen if you have Javonte Williams. But as a team, I think they work best with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon both healthy. Do you kind of see that the same way?
Yeah, I actually think that Javonte Williams should get the keys to the car. And I don't think that they have the money to re-sign Melvin Gordon. Maybe if Melvin gets really desperate. I know it didn't work out with the Baltimore Ravens, but personally, I'm ready to draft Javonte Williams in the first round, and that means no external competition anymore.
Yeah.
I like the call with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton right now. I'm still building out my projections, but in terms of value, they're really, really close in terms of expected usable weeks in best ball, which is one of the stats that I really hone in on when I'm making my projections. Now we move on to the Los Angeles Chargers, who are one of the most exciting teams heading into 2022. They have the 10th overall offense. Justin Herbert has been one of those quarterbacks, those rare breeds that steps onto an NFL field and the game's not too fast for him. He can immediately make an impact from an efficiency standpoint. We saw him take the next step. Their defense actually was the one that was slowing them down. 24th in overall defensive grade, 20th in coverage grade. I think we're going to see them go defensive back early. I think they'll shore up the offensive line just because the rest of that offense is in pristinely good shape. Probably some tight end help. This team, man, I think this team could go really far into January and February. How are you feeling about the Los Angeles Chargers?
I'm very excited about the Chargers. They got Khalil Mack for a half-eaten bag of potato chips. This is a team that last year probably should have been in the playoffs. They ultimately choked in that game to the Raiders. Justin Herbert looked fantastic in that game. Herbert has been one of my worst calls ever. I really didn't think the guy was that great out of Oregon. I even laughed when they picked him on live stream. I was like, what a bunch of idiots. That's a terrible pick. And then Chargers fans on Twitter, they don't like me. They tweet that video at me all the time every time Justin Herbert wins a game. I don't even know how they found that, but it is what it is. Justin Herbert is fantastic. They bring back Mike Williams. Mike Williams is one of those guys that tries to make every single catch possible, and that puts him in harm's way all the time. Like, he'll just dive backwards. He'll do a backflip to try to catch a ball. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes ends up with him getting hurt. But I do like this offense as a whole. I think Austin Eckler is one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's my favorite running back in the NFL. And I think if this defense is able to stay healthy, which has also been one of those narratives for years with the Chargers, can their defense stay healthy? The answer in the past has been no. If the answer is yes this year, then this is the team that I expect to win the division.
Ready for a hot take?
Yes.
Austin Eckler, number 1 overall player in fantasy. Let's go. Get ready. I know he's a first-round pick, but I'm using my one-on-one on him. I'm not scared. I think the Chargers are that good. I think they're ready to take the next step. But they're going to have to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs, who always find themselves these days in an AFC championship game. That's how it goes when you have a superstar like Patrick Mahomes. The 6th-ranked offense, we're always going to see them right in that top 10. And honestly, you could say the 6th-ranked offense is a below-average finish for them. The 12th-ranked defense, 7th in coverage grade. That's a huge deal for this team going forward. I still expect them to use some of their draft capital on cornerback, linebacker, but you got to expect with Tyreek Hill traded away, they use one of these first-round picks, the 29th and 30th pick. They also have the 50th pick. One of those, at least one, need to be on a wide receiver. Patrick Mahomes is going to have some new weapon to play with come this May, no?
Yeah, I would have to think so. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a fine fill-in, but he's not Tyreek Hill. Whoever they draft isn't going to be Tyreek Hill. It's almost impossible to find someone that's like that. But I would think that they would pull the trigger on a wide receiver early on in the draft. And if it is any wide receiver that I even believe has the skill to be drafted there, right, as long as they don't make some crazy pick like drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round, then I'm going to be very confident that this guy could be a top-end fantasy football wide receiver. Patrick Mahomes is not going to just fall off the edge of the earth without Tyreek Hill. People are going to make that argument, oh, he can't be top 5 because of the fact that he doesn't have Tyreek Hill. In my opinion, sure, Tyreek Hill is a huge help, but he still has Travis Kelce. He still has all these other weapons on this offense. And I think the addition of Ronald Jones, which is something that most people won't even bring up, is going to be very helpful for this offense. They have basically a bunch of clones of Clyde Edwards-Helaire behind him. Now they have a big running back there. Again, Ronald Jones, he's not Derrick Henry or something, but he has shown, at least to me, that he could be valuable for this offense. And the Chiefs, I mean, you can't call them a sleeper, right? They're 10.5 wins, but it almost feels like they are with how much people are discrediting them.
Yeah, and, Patrick Mahomes, it's just the ceiling for him is so ridiculously high. I've been talking about that drive success rate stat that I always mention. When you adjust it for sample size, there's no one even close in the NFL over the last 20 years that has come close to Patrick Mahomes' efficiency, his ability to turn a drive into the touchdown. I'm going to say this. I think the Chiefs make the playoffs, but they lose the division to the Los Angeles Chargers. That is my hot take, my pick for this division winner. What say you about the division winner in the West?
Yeah, I also went with the Chargers. I really think that Justin Herbert is going to take these guys very far in the playoffs. I think this is a team that is set up for success right now. The defense, again, if they are able to stay healthy, might be one of the best units in the NFL. I just really like this team, and I might be a little bit lower on the Broncos compared to normal, so I really do think the Chargers could run away with this division. But again, don't sleep on any of these teams. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to be shocked if the Raiders win this division.
Yeah, it's hard to do, but you could have all 4 West teams sneak into the playoffs. It could happen. Yeah, and remember, Russell Wilson did have those efficiency issues and turnover problems too. If that's not a fluke, if that's not because of injuries and he has more variance, maybe the Seahawks knew something we don't. I would say that team has the most variance out of any of these teams in the West. Okay, rapid fire. We don't even know who these teams picked in the draft yet, so we are allowed to change this. But if you had to guess, what is your prediction for who makes the AFC Championship game?
We're going to go with the Chargers, and the Buffalo Bills. My hope is that it is the Dolphins and they win the Super Bowl, but probably will be the Bills and the Chargers. I think the Bills, they keep knocking on the door. They're almost there. I think they could. I don't know. I just feel like they're going to make the AFC Championship game. They are just so good on paper. I don't think Von Miller is still the same Von Miller. I don't know why they paid him all that money, but he is definitely going to be helpful for this defense. Tre'Davious White, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Micah Hyde, a laundry list of names. There's a huge amount of names you can name off as star players on this Bills team. And Josh Allen, there's just no signs of regression. I talked about quarterbacks on the Best Ball channel yesterday. None of his metrics pointed towards that he was just going to have a worse season next year. So I like Josh Allen a ton and this Bills team.
Yeah, I cannot believe that I wrote Bills Chargers as well.
That's hilarious.
We're sleeping on the Chiefs. That's how I feel. All right. I can't believe it. We didn't talk at all about who we actually picked. That's how we're feeling. Wow. All right. And who's your prediction right now about who comes out of the AFC in that game if you had to pick?
I think it would be the Bills. Now,
That's
again,
what I said.
the biggest argument. Oh, sorry, you can go.
So we got Bills and Buccaneers as our Super Bowl. So I'm going to ask you, who is your Super Bowl winner as well?
Oh, I would have to go with the Buccaneers. Now, in the Super Bowl, a lot of why people were down on Joe Burrow. Oh, he's so young, blah, blah, blah. Matthew Stafford, that was also his first Super Bowl. So could Justin Herbert could Josh Allen beat Tom Brady? 100%. But I just think Tom Brady owns the Buffalo Bills, so he'd win that.
It's incredible. I mean, I'm kind of reading the NFL the same way. The teams that we're not mentioning here, Kansas City, obviously, Baltimore can make a huge run. What a year we have ahead of us in the NFL. This has been really fun, Nick. And of course, we have all the coverage you need leading up to the NFL draft. Nick, you want to tell them what we're going to be doing on NFL draft night?
Yes, on Thursday night during the NFL draft, we're going to be live during the whole draft. There's also going to be, I believe, a pre-show leading up to it, but we'll be live throughout the whole draft. We're going to be talking about the draft. We're going to be having a fun time. So if you want to watch that, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You like this video, you head on over there on Thursday night. We're going to have a great time. If you're in the chat, we're going to talk to you as well. So I hope you guys did end up enjoying today's video, and I hope you watch us on Thursday because we're going to have a great time. It's going to be very fun.
Well said, my friend. Follow him at Notorious Fantasy, at Notorious FNTSY. That's Nick Lepri over there. I'm Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. We got so much coverage leading up to the draft. Keep it right here on the AWESEMO Fantasy Football channel. We'll see you guys next time.